Al combate corred, vaya meses, que la patria os contempla orgullosa. No temáis una muerte gloriosa, que morir por la patria es vivir. En cadenas vivir es vivir, en afrenta y oprobio sumido. Del clarín escuchar el sonido, a las armas valientes correr.
Good evening. It's a great honor and pleasure to greet Canadian friends on behalf of the Cuban Embassy in Canada when we celebrate Cuba's National Day, commemorating the 62nd anniversary of the triumph of the Cuban Revolution and the 168th anniversary of the birth of the national hero of Cuba, José Martí. I take this opportunity to express our warmest and best wishes for the new year, sincerely expecting that 2021 bring health and hope of a better and prosperous future to all of us. 2020 has been a very difficult and challenging year for all of humanity. For Cuba, this has been one of the hardest years in the last 2 decades, since we have had to face 2 pandemics simultaneously: the COVID-19 pandemic and a pandemic of U.S. unilateral economic sanctions, which tightened to unprecedented levels and did not cease until the last days of the previous U.S. administration. COVID-19 has had a severe impact on the Cuban economy due to the decline in tourism, one of the main sources of income for the country. One must add to this the enormous and unforeseen expenses to protect the health of the population. COVID-19 continues to be an important health and economic challenge to our island, which has not been spared the second wave of the pandemic and its surge in positive cases. However, Cuba continues to show low levels of transmission and better indicators than most countries due to the strength of its health system and the effectiveness of the treatment protocols, with more than a dozen biopharmaceuticals developed by Cuban scientists. The other pandemic, that of the U.S. economic trade and financial blockade, has had an enormous cost for Cuba, its economy, and the living conditions of the Cuban people. During his tenure, the Trump administration implemented more than 230 unilateral coercive measures against Cuba, some of the harshest during the COVID health emergency. They were aimed at attacking Cuba's financial transactions, the tourism industry, the energy sector, foreign investment, and medical cooperation programs with other countries, with the deliberate purpose of depriving Cuba of sources of revenue to suffocate its economy and promote a social explosion. In their greatest expression of cruelty, U.S. actions prevented Cuba from acquiring necessary medical equipment, supplies, and technologies to fight the pandemic. However, Cuba resisted, grew up in the face of challenges, and once again defeated the irrational, aggressive policy of the United States. The proven resilience of the Cuban people, the strength of its institutions, and international solidarity have been key to moving forward. Cuba was never alone, nor did it ever feel alone. We received the support of numerous international organizations and governments, and we were privileged to have the solidarity and accompaniment of millions of people of goodwill in the world. I take this opportunity to express our gratitude to the Canadian government and Global Affairs Canada for the funds donated through PAHO to help Cuba acquire priority supplies to fight COVID-19. Several members of the Canadian Parliament deserve our special thanks and recognition for their work to make this donation possible, especially in the midst of the multiple obstacles posed by the U.S. to prevent the arrival of international humanitarian aid to Cuba in the middle of the pandemic. This is an expression of the strength of our bilateral ties and the existing high-level political dialogue, just in the year in which we celebrated the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Cuba and Canada. Je ne peux pas manquer de mentionner à cette occasion les autorités du gouvernement du Québec, avec lesquelles nous avons renforcé les liens institutionnels et les échanges dans les domaines les plus divers. Our appreciation goes as well to the Canadian businessmen, investors, trade and financial institutions which remained and continued to bet on Cuba, even in the midst of huge difficulties and challenges derived from the unilateral sanctions of the United States, which have also affected them significantly due to their extraterritorial scope. The valuable support provided in these particular hard times by solidarity groups, which are part of the Canadian Network on Cuba and La Table de Concertación y Solidarité Quebec-Cuba, has been deeply appreciated by the Cuban people. This is the right moment to reiterate to them, as well as to las asociaciones de cubanos residentes en Canadá, nuestra gratitud más sincera y profunda por su permanente solidaridad y su acompañamiento firme e invariable a Cuba y a los cubanos en esta difícil etapa. Gracias, queridos compatriotas, por su amor infinito a Cuba. Thank you, dear friends, from the bottom of our hearts, for your donations of funds and medical supplies to support our efforts against COVID-19 at home and abroad. Thank you for supporting the nomination of the Cuban Medical Brigade's Henry Reef for the Nobel Peace Prize, in recognition of their altruistic and selfless assistance to 39 countries and territories in coping with the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, friends, for exposing to the Canadian public opinion and the world the timely denouncing the growing aggressions committed by the US government against the Cuban people. Despite the enormous challenges, tensions, and aggressions that Cuba has had to face in the last years, our country has not been paralyzed. In addition to facing the pandemic and the US blockade, the Cuban government has made it a priority to update the country's post-COVID strategy. The economy has fallen, but we have continued working on its development. Now, under the guidance of the Economic Social Strategy and the National Plan for Economic and Social Development until 2030, which has just been approved. Despite the uncertainty that persists about the evolution of the pandemic and its impact on the economy, in 2021 we expect a gradual process of economic recovery. Cuba has managed to overcome each of the complex moments of the COVID-19 pandemic and will surely overcome the current second wave as well. In 2021, we have a very high probability that the entire Cuban population will be immunized with the vaccines developed by our own scientists. Well trained after 60 years of confronting gigantic challenges and sieges, we are convinced that the resilient Cuba will once again resist, jump beyond its own possibilities, overcome and further advance in its development. As our President Miguel Díaz-Canel said a few months ago, love for Cuba unites and mobilizes us, and that love will save us. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Vidal, on behalf of all Canadians, I would like to extend greetings to you and to the people of Cuba. Reciban nuestros más cálidos saludos en la celebración del Día Nacional de Cuba. Aujourd'hui, nous nous rappelons de l'importance de nos liens solides et de nos relations diplomatiques historiques. Ils ont résisté à l'épreuve du temps et transcendé des générations de nos citoyens, dans les bons y dans les mauvais moments. Es cierto que el mundo, incluyendo Canadá y Cuba, está viviendo un momento difícil, gracias a la pandemia mundial, una situación sin precedentes en la cual estamos todos afectados. It is through moments like these in which we know that we are one global community and we need to help each other. We are proud of Canada's response to assist Cuba's efforts to address the pandemic and recognize the special measures put in place by the Cuban government to control it. The story of Canada and Cuba also includes countless and enduring connections in education, culture, and business, just to name a few. At the heart of these connections are the personal relationships that have been forged. Ce sont des liens qui sont à la base de notre amitié. Et ces liens nous aideront à avancer ensemble vers des temps meilleurs. We can't talk about Cuba without thinking about its culture and its people. It goes without saying that Cuba is a country as rich in history as it is in culture. The prominence of Cuban art shines globally, but nothing so bright as the music of the island. And as an amateur musician, I appreciate very much Cuban music's universal spirit and lively celebration of life. In Cuba, as is tradition, this day is celebrated along with the arrival of the new year, normally with concerts animated by popular orchestras, musical groups, and traditional children's songs, a great inspiration for a new year ahead. Although this year the celebrations did not happen, it has been a tough year to adapt to new realities. However, what makes me optimistic is seeing that we are capable to adapt and that we thrive in moments of change. And I am very pleased to be able to be part of this event through this video. En esta fecha de conmemoración y de Año Nuevo, les enviamos nuestros mejores deseos para reafirmar nuestros lazos y renovar nuestra amistad. Muchísimas gracias. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Con tanta gente que existe y tú te fijas en mí, en este mar de colores me dibujas así. A mí me gusta la noche y tú eres de madrugar. Es tan extraño que el tiempo nos quisiera encontrar. Sin intentar entenderlo, lo encuentro perfecto. Nuestra diferencia es del mundo el reflejo. Ya se ha puesto viejo creer que la vida es mejor cuando todo es igual. Dividido está el mundo, dividido. Si vas a bailar conmigo, escoge cualquier camino. Dividido está el mundo, dividido. Si vas a bailar conmigo, escoge cualquier camino. Oyendo esta melodía me decido a bailar. Quizás te noto en los ojos, tú te quieres sentar. A ti te gusta el silencio y yo no paro de hablar. Es mágico y divertido de otro punto mirar. Sin intentar entenderlo, lo encuentro perfecto. Nuestra diferencia es del mundo el reflejo. Ya se ha puesto viejo creer que la vida es mejor cuando todo es igual. Yeah, 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 yeah. Dividido está el mundo, dividido. Si vas a bailar conmigo, escoge cualquier camino. Dividido está el mundo, dividido. Si vas a bailar conmigo, escoge cualquier camino. Razón tienen las aves al migrar, volar cambiando de aire y de lugar, cruzar la tempestad sin miedo a descubrir lo nuevo. Dividido está el mundo, dividido. Si vas a bailar conmigo, escoge cualquier camino. Dice, dividido está el mundo, dividido. Si vas a bailar conmigo, escoge cualquier camino. Si vas a bailar conmigo, escoge cualquier camino. Si vas a bailar conmigo, oh, yeah, escoge cualquier camino. Thank you so much. What an honor to be here today performing in this wonderful event. I came to Canada the first time back in 1995. It was the year that I met my wife as well. But it was the year that Canada and Cuba celebrated 50 years of diplomatic relationship. I quite excited to say, that we're now on year number 75, I think. And it's just, for me, beautiful to see Canada and Cuba still standing together. My family, my kids are half Cuban, half Canadian. And it's something very beautiful for me to be able to perform here today on such an important day. Thank you very much, everybody.
La Revolución Cubana acaba de cumplir 62 años. Se dice fácilmente, pero han sido 62 años de resistencia, de agresividad por parte de Estados Unidos y de victoria para el pueblo cubano. El significado de la revolución no puede resumirse en pocas palabras, pero seré breve. Para mí y para mi generación, nosotros fuimos los primeros que nos beneficiamos con el cambio total y permanente que trajo la Revolución Cubana. Pudimos ir a la escuela, pudimos educarnos, tuvimos acceso a la salud pública y, en fin, nosotros pudimos llegar a la realización de nuestros sueños y asistir todos a la universidad sin pagar un centavo. También significó la revolución la voz para los marginados, los oprimidos, los sin voz, los que nunca habían sido escuchados. Y ese mismo pueblo que defendió entonces la revolución la sigue defendiendo hoy. Y ese mismo pueblo que la apoyó al principio sigue resistiendo, confiado en las próximas victorias. Y estamos seguros que la revolución cumplirá muchísimos años más.
Feliz aniversario 62 a nuestra revolución cubana, desde tierras lejanas.
Saludos a todas y a todos con una cálida bienvenida a este nuevo año 2021. Durante el pasado año 2020, la asociación no ha tenido mucho movimiento físico. Lo que hemos podido hacer ha sido obviamente virtual. El pasado año no fue muy bueno y no voy a enumerar lo que la mayoría de nosotros sabemos fue muy negativo para el mundo en general. Pero para Cuba estos males se duplicaron y en ciertos casos se triplicaron. Y para el buen entendedor, solo mencionaré la inhumana y absurda política del presidente saliente Donald Trump contra Cuba en tiempos de una terrible pandemia. Sumémosle a esto la mezquina y activa propaganda anticubana llevada a cabo por la extrema derecha del sur de la Florida de los Estados Unidos. Me atrevería a decir que muy pocos países en el mundo habrían sido capaces de soportar una arremetida tan brutal y por tan largo tiempo. Pero ahí va Cuba, con la inmensa mayoría de su pueblo apoyando y siguiendo las orientaciones de sus dignos líderes. Con muchas dificultades, pero avanzando hacia un futuro mejor como sueña Fidel. Entonces, estamos celebrando este año el aniversario 62 del triunfo de la gran revolución cubana. Contra viento y marea, como se podría decir en buen español. Este mes de enero celebraremos el 168 aniversario del natalicio de nuestro apóstol. No del martí que la extrema derecha de Estados Unidos quiere e intenta robarnos, poniéndole su nombre a emisoras traidoras de radio y televisión que solamente difunden odio y mentiras contra el pueblo de Cuba desde Miami. No, yo no hablo de ese Martí, yo hablo del Martí nuestro, José Martí y Pérez, el que nació en la calle de Paula en La Habana en una casa que ha sido muy bien conservada por el gobierno de Cuba, un 28 de enero de 1853. Ese Martí que, como todos, absolutamente todos los cubanos, sabemos, luchó toda su vida por la independencia de todos los cubanos y contra el imperialismo. Cordiales saludos y muchas gracias.
De parte de la Mesa de Concertación de Solidaridad Quebec-Cuba, felicidades al pueblo cubano por el 62 aniversario de la conquista de su verdadera independencia. El pueblo cubano es un pueblo heroico, digno, firme, que no se rinde, que nos enseña cómo luchar, resistir y vencer. El pueblo cubano era, es y será revolucionario, solidario, independiente para siempre. Felicidades, les deseamos 62 aniversario más. ¡Viva Cuba!
Salutations y saludos. My name is Isaac Saney, co-chair and spokesperson of the Canadian Network on Cuba. On the occasion of the 62nd anniversary of the triumph of the Cuban Revolution, the Canadian Network on Cuba, the CNC, on behalf of the Canada-Cuba Friendship and Solidarity Movement, extends our warmest and most heartfelt greetings to the Cuban people. On January 1st, 1959, the people of Cuba, with the historic leadership of Fidel Castro, firmly took control of their destiny. These past 62 years, which have flashed by, are filled with a rich and profound illustration of what can be achieved when a country wins and defends its independence and exercises its right to self-determination. In the face of the COVID-19 pandemic ravaging the world, in a world fraught with the dangers of planetary-wide conflagration, Cuba demonstrates that relations among the world's nations and peoples do not have to be determined by self-interest and the pursuit of power and wealth. Instead, Cuba provides the inspirational example that it is possible to build relations based on genuine human solidarity. There's a growing recognition that Cuba's example needs to be globalized. This realization is reflected in the numerous nominations of Cuba's internationalist medical contingent, the Henry Reeve Brigade, for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize. Many countries are drawing on Cuba's expertise in fighting COVID-19. Almost 4,000 medical personnel in 39 countries have participated and are participating in the front lines of the fight against the coronavirus. Cuba's example is therefore singular and unprecedented. 2021 will be a year in which Cuba will be celebrating extremely significant anniversaries, not least among them the 60th anniversary in April of the Cuban victory at Playa Girón over US organized and financed mercenaries. Within 3 days of that invasion, the Cuban people comprehensively defeated the invaders, shattering the myth of US invincibility. This defeat of this brazen act of aggression represented the first comprehensive defeat of US imperialism in Latin America. Cuba will also be celebrating the 60th anniversary of the launch of the Literacy Campaign, where Cuba placed the education and cultural advancements of its people in the vanguard of the task of building a new and just society. In the ensuing years, since the triumph of the Cuban Revolution, despite all efforts of the US empire to bring Cuba to her knees, the resilience and determination of the Cuban people to defend their independence, their dignity, their homeland, which is the basis of their own freedom and dignity, has prevailed time and time again. Today, facing formidable and challenging conditions, the Cuban people undauntedly continue to renew and advance their revolution, a living example that it is possible to build societies based on social relations of justice and human dignity. As the Cuban people confidently march forward, the CNC is confident that Cuba will continue to prevail, overcoming all the challenges and difficulties they face. Jose Marti declared, "Trenches made of ideas are stronger than those made of stones." And he also said, "A just cause, even one buried in the depths of a cave, is mightier than an army." Jose Marti and Fidel are still with us in the trenches, shoulder to shoulder with us in our struggle to bring into being a better world, demonstrating what can be achieved by holding aloft the banners of justice, peace, internationalism, and human dignity. Their legacy continues to be a living testament and inspiration. Jose Marti and Fidel epitomize the unbending commitment to justice, dignity, and independence that has characterized Cuba since the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. Their living legacy continue in the work of the Cuban Revolution. Their example and fidelity to principle continue to inspire the Cuban people, continuing to inspire those of the Americas, and continue to inspire all those on the world scale who struggle for a better world and who wish to continue on the path of independence, self-determination, and human dignity.
Esto no puede ser no más que una canción. Quisiera fuera una declaración de amor, romántica, sin reparar en formas que pongan freno a lo que siento ahora raudales. Cuando te vi sabía que era cierto. Este temor de hallarme descubierto. Tú me desnudas con 7 razones. Me abras el pecho siempre que me colmas. Por eso a veces sé que necesito
a ver el sol cada mañana, rezando el credo que me has enseñado. Miro tu cara y digo en la ventana, Yolanda, Yolanda, eternamente, Yolanda, Yolanda, eternamente, Yolanda,